Suburban Sentinel here with a firearms related video rant. For many centuries now, my people have been either ignored, brushed aside, and even vilified. Now, I'm not talking about race, ethnicity, or religion. What I am talking about here is the few, the proud, the left-handed. Yes, us southpaws. This is a right-handed world. From the get-go, left-handed people have been at a disadvantage. I'm sure many of you remember being in kindergarten. If you're lefty, if you remember, we had those right-handed scissors with the blunt tips that left-handed people just flat out couldn't use. And I think that's where it began. We could never cut anything, at least I couldn't cut anything in kindergarten with those scissors. Later on in middle school, there were those right-handed desks where the writing surface was pushed all the way to the right. So as a lefty, you ended up twisting into a pretzel in order to be able to write on your desk. Not comfortable at all. And of course, this continued into adulthood, which is by and large a right-handed world. Cooking utensils, cameras, tools are all manufactured for right-handed people. It can be an inconvenience to those of us who are left-handed, but it can also be quite dangerous. For example, I have a chainsaw. Now, as a lefty, using a chainsaw that's specifically designed for right-handed people, I do not use my chainsaw with confidence and authority. When I use that saw, it's done with a certain amount of trepidation because it's just not comfortable. And that is not a good situation and implement with such a great degree of danger if misused. As with most industries, firearms manufacturers have not exactly been friendly to us southpaws. There are very few guns designed for lefties, with some notable exceptions. The old-fashioned break-action revolvers are quite ambidextrous. I believe Counterargums made and probably still makes a dedicated left-handed revolver. There are some bolt guns and semi-automatic carbines and rifles that are dedicated to lefties or ambidextrous. And I understand that the industry is starting to put more ambidextrous controls on lots of handguns and long guns, but I do not believe that we can call the guns truly ambidextrous unless the firearm can be operated with equal ease from either left or right hand. In my humble opinion, those of us of the left-handed persuasion should demand either dedicated lefty or truly ambidextrous guns, and you manufacturers out there should make them. Now, before I delve into the reasons why, I'd like to first look at the counterarguments. Some people, both left-handed and right-handed alike, might argue that lefties should just learn how to shoot righty. And for a lot of us lefties, that's just flat out not going to happen. Myself, as an example, I suck shooting right-handed, and the other left-handed shooters I know will not shoot righty either. Another often heard argument is that left-handed people should just learn to live with guns that are set up for right-handed people. Now, there's a certain amount of logic to that argument. Left-handed people are certainly in the minority, so it makes sense that guns be made for the greater percentage of the population. But I don't think that's absolutely necessary. First, having a compromise of using a right-handed gun as a lefty, the gun cannot be manipulated and used quite as effectively, at least for an amateur, as one could if the controls and the gun were set up properly for a left-handed person. Second, this is America, and America is about choice. In fact, America is about overchoice. I had the great misfortune of having to go to the supermarket a few days ago to get exactly 2 items. And I was there for more than 30 minutes. I was there wandering up and down the cereal aisle. There must have been more than 100 breakfast cereals available in every imaginable shape, size, form, and type of ingredient. Personally, I think 99.9% of them were poison, but an incredible array of cereals. It took me forever to find just good old-fashioned shredded wheat. In addition, I went there to get crushed tomatoes. Now, that one brand that my wife wanted, they had 6 different types of crushed tomatoes. Crazy, right? But that's the way it is. You go to order a car, you could have a car 6,000 different ways from Sunday with all types of options, colors, etc. We as Americans are used to overchoice, so we should be able to get left-handed guns. In addition, many of us, probably most of us in the gun community, use our firearms for self-defense and defense of our families. That is very serious business. And when it comes to defending my own life and my family, good enough just isn't good enough. I want my firearms to be as close to perfect for me as possible. And I don't think that's asking too much in a country where we can have 200 different types of cereals and 6 types of crushed tomatoes and 9 million different variations of cars. Now, I know what the firearms industry says is, first, they've done studies and there's not enough of a market to justify making left-handed firearms in general, or they've put a few out there and there were too few takers and that was their real-world experience. But I believe this is a chicken and egg type of problem. The best estimates are that lefties make up plus or minus 10% of the population. And a lot of us have just been taught to live in that right-handed world. I firmly believe that given more time in the market and more choices of guns, more left-handed people would become purchasers of either dedicated lefty or fully ambidextrous firearms. In addition, I don't think the industry started on the right end of the scale. A lot of the lefty ambi guns are for experienced or older shooters. I've never seen a youth type model like a Ruger 1022 made in lefty. So I think if the younger folks just getting into firearms could have a dedicated lefty model or ambidextrous model, they may be more inclined to support that market. Unlike foods at the grocery store and modern automobiles, guns are an industry with very high engineering and tooling costs spread over relatively lower volumes of production. So I get that making left-handed guns would be a costly proposition. I come from a manufacturing background myself, so I'm certainly sensitive to the costs associated with design and tooling and supporting a product where you have more than one variation of the same product. So I agree that having left-handed versions or ambidextrous versions of existing firearms will cost more. But the answer to that is charge more. As a lefty, speaking for myself, I certainly wouldn't mind paying a premium for a lefty-friendly firearm. The final issue I want to address is why the firearms industry should be paying attention to us southpaws? Well, again, first, we are approximately 10% of the population, and that's a big market. Perhaps, and again, I'm not sure of this, but the more user-friendly that guns are for lefties, the more sales that can be generated. Second, the expected lifespan of a left-handed person is 9 full years less than average. Now, for those of us of the lefty persuasion, that may not be a statistic that we're comfortable hearing, but that means, okay, we'll be here 9 years on average less, so let's spend more money on guns while we're here instead of being in a wheelchair drooling somewhere. And that works for me. Finally, and most importantly, is that left-handed people tend to be more active in politics. And to give you a stunning example of what I mean by that, of the last 14 presidents of the United States, 6 have been left-handed. Now again, the usual population of lefties is 10%. We have 6 out of 14 who are left-handed, and 1 who was ambidextrous. Ronald Reagan was ambi. So 7 out of 14 were either lefty or ambi, whereas the usual population of lefties, we would think of 1 to 2 presidents who would be a lefty. Given that guns are such a hot political issue and have been for decades, perhaps it would be a good idea to make sure that the people who are politically active are on our side. It just so happens that our current president, Mr. Obama, is one of those left-handed presidents. Perhaps if Ruger had made a left-handed 1022 when Mr. Obama was a youngster, maybe he wouldn't be so anti-gun and we wouldn't have to be fighting him every step of the way to maintain our civil rights. I have here on the table my 5.56 tactical carbine made by Stag Arms out of New Britain, Connecticut. Now, Stag deserves a big shout out from all of us of the lefty persuasion, because Stag, which is a prolific maker of the AR platform, makes every single one of their rifles in a left-handed model. And as a southpaw, we have to applaud Stag's efforts. As an added bonus, Stag does not charge any more for its left-handed models. And again, I certainly wouldn't mind paying more for the privilege of having a carbine or rifle that fits me properly, but it's a real nice bonus that Stag, let's see if I can scooch in on their logo here a little better, out of New Britain, Connecticut, does not charge any more for their left-handed carbines and rifles. So great job, guys. Also note, I didn't buy this just because it's a lefty. Stag makes an excellent AR system overall. So whether you're right or left-handed, Stag has a good AR for you. I've had this 2TL model a couple of years, and it's been 100% reliable. So that's all I have to say about the left-handedness at the moment. Please subscribe. This is the Suburban Sentinel. Safe shooting, everybody.